Parents loved my golden brother and rejected me for starting my own business. But I'm 29 years old. Recently, my parents, whom I haven't spoken to for the past 5 years, contacted me saying they need my help. Specifically, they want me to help my brother. They've always treated my brother Craig, 31 years old, like a golden child, and they never even tried to hide it because, at one point, he excelled in everything, especially in school. They never let me forget that, constantly reminding me that he did better in school and that I needed to work harder if I wanted to keep up with him. Craig got into a great college, and 5 years ago, he became the youngest vice president in the history of his company. He had worked there since graduation and was earning a good salary from the start, but when he made history as the youngest VP, his prestigious corporate job became a standard for me, and my parents couldn't stop rubbing it in my face. Honestly, I never wanted to work the 9-to-5 grind. Sure, it has its perks, but I always dreamed of becoming an entrepreneur since I learned what that word meant 5 years ago. After working at several companies and gaining knowledge in a field that interested me, I finally decided to open my own business, a modern and stylish car tuning service that I developed myself. I spent a lot of time researching and developing it, and I had a solid business plan. So, I decided to talk to my parents about it, despite their different attitudes towards me and my brother. I believe they also wanted the best for me since they're my parents. I told them about my plans 2 days after the party they threw in honor of my brother's new job. I expected some kind of feedback, but instead, they just started laughing and said that I must be joking. They thought it was ridiculous that after all those years of studying, my big idea for a future business was car tuning. I told them I was serious, but they responded by advising me not to quit my current job because they'd be ashamed to call me a failure. They were sure my business was doomed from the start because I wasn't competent enough, especially compared to my brother. They didn't want me to mess up so badly, so it was better for me to just stay in my current job. This insulted me, and I argued with them, stating that I would start my business regardless of their support or not. They said that I could do whatever I wanted, but I would be responsible for the consequences. If I went through with my idea, they would have to cut me out of their lives because I'd be an embarrassment to them, and they were already sure of it. They also said they were tired of introducing their sons, one a VP at a prestigious company, and the other a 25-year-old still trying to figure out what he wants to do in life. So, they had been thinking about this for a while and finally stated that I had two options: either continue building a career at my current job and not embarrass them, or do whatever I wanted, but risk losing my family. I think it's obvious what I chose. I cut them out of my life and haven't spoken to them since. I also stopped contacting my brother, who, of course, sided with my parents, but I don't care. He's always been too arrogant, so I never wanted anything to do with him. I worked with cars for a long time, and it was from there that the idea for my business came. I believed in it, I knew it was something people needed, so I took the risk and decided to prove to my parents that they were wrong. I quit my job and started working toward my goal. Yes, it was a risky move, and I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but everything worked out. A few months later, I found investors and was able to launch my business. The first months were tough. I literally lived paycheck to paycheck and relied solely on word-of-mouth advertising. But the more people learned about my business, the more clients I gained. About a year and a half later, my business began to grow, and now everything is fine. I have my own apartment, it's pretty nice, I live in a great neighborhood, I have a good car, and honestly, I have everything I dreamed of. I wouldn't say I'm a millionaire, but I'm definitely earning enough, and I can definitely say I'm not a failure, as my parents once labeled me. So, I proved them wrong, and that feels really good. I'm so happy about it that I don't even feel the need to show them my success. It's just not worth it. I haven't tried to contact them in the last 5 years, and during that time, I even got married to my girlfriend, who I've been with for 8 years, and we've been married for 2 years now. Last month, we found out we're expecting a child. So many important things have happened in my life, but I never felt the need to share them with my parents. They know where to find me, they can ask any relative, and they'll tell them where I live if they really want to see me. I also know that they're aware of my life because I stay in touch with the rest of the family, and I hear they often ask about me, but they never try to reach out themselves. I guess that's how they cope with the situation. But anyway, last week, they finally decided to write to me and asked if I'd like to meet. I discussed it with my wife, and she said I should go and find out what they want to talk about. There were no details in their message, so I didn't know what to expect, but I went to their house. When I arrived, they greeted me warmly, but I immediately felt that something was off. Even when I lived with them, they were never this polite. So, while they tried to engage me in casual conversation, I knew this was just the prelude to something bigger. And then, finally, they got to the point. They said they'd heard how well my business was doing and invited me over to congratulate me. They didn't apologize, but they said they were glad I could prove them wrong and that their previous skepticism was completely unjustified. Well, that's nice to hear, and I didn't really know how to respond, so I just smiled. But then they started telling me that Craig had been going through a rough time in the last few months. His company had faced tough times, there were mass layoffs, and even top management was fired, including him. So, for the last 4 months, he'd just been sitting at home doing nothing. My parents said he had tried to find a new job, but after so many years at one company, he didn't know where to start, and he was really struggling with everything that had happened. It seemed strange that they were even bringing him up. After all, I couldn't do anything in this situation, so I just listened, waiting to see where they were going with this. Finally, they got to the point and asked if I could hire my brother. According to them, he was so depressed now that he couldn't even apply for new jobs, and all the offers he got were much lower than his previous salary. So, he really needed help. My parents wanted me to offer him a good position in my company with a decent salary, and at the same time, he could contribute his experience to my business. I didn't know how to respond, so I told them I needed time to think, and I'd give them my answer later. I deliberately didn't say yes because I just didn't know how to react. I should have realized they approached me for a reason. They could have done this earlier, but they never did. They seemed pleased with themselves, like they expected me to say yes. But when I got home, I thought it over for a long time, and after discussing it with my wife, I decided to refuse. My wife works in a bank and has nothing to do with my business, but she said that in professional matters, the decision was mine, and she didn't want to interfere if I felt I couldn't work with my brother. So, that was how it had to be. She also didn't believe my parents truly wanted to reconcile. They just needed me to help Craig. So, I had no reason to agree to their request. After all, I never promised to help them, so I'm not obliged to do anything for them. I wasn't planning on telling them no right away because I knew if I said no, they'd make me look bad. I was trying to avoid conflict, but they started texting me every day asking for my decision, and I just ignored their messages. But 2 days ago, they called and demanded an answer. So, I told them I'd thought it over, and after much consideration, I realized I couldn't work with Craig, and I didn't want him to work with me. We never got along, and I don't think I owed him or my parents such a favor. After that, they just went crazy. They started yelling, reminding me everything they had done for me, how they raised me, bought me everything I wanted as a child, and now when they expected my gratitude, I turned my back on them. I found it completely unfair. They took care of me because I was a child and depended on them, not because they were doing me a favor. And it had nothing to do with the current situation. I tried to explain that the only reason I refused was that I couldn't work with my brother, and there was no reason to yell at me. Besides, we hadn't spoken for 5 years because they themselves said they didn't believe in me and didn't even invest in my business. So, they have no right to expect me to let them control me now. But they kept yelling, saying they only contacted me because 5 years had passed, and they thought I'd finally forgotten everything now that my life was going well. But according to them, I was just petty, holding on to old grudges, and refusing to help my own family. They even said that if I were in Craig's position, he'd do the same for me. They assured me that if my business hadn't worked out, they would have supported me. And now, I had to do the same for them. The argument got more and more heated, and eventually, I said I didn't want to talk to them anymore. I hung up and blocked their numbers. Since then, I've been feeling very strange and can't figure out my feelings because of their words about how they'd help me if I were in Craig's position. I talked about this with my wife, and she said they were saying that because I hadn't been in his position, and they were just trying to manipulate me. So, I shouldn't give in to it, especially since they never even apologized, but still expected me to help him. Craig had never been kind to me as a kid, and he always bullied me, so I understand that she's right. But despite all of this, I still have this strange feeling of guilt. I don't know why. I just feel weird about the whole situation. Update 1. Thank you to everyone who responded to my post. It's been some time since I last talked to my parents, and honestly, I realized that my refusal wasn't such a big deal. It's not like my brother will never be able to find a job again, it's just that personally, I don't want to work with him. As I said, I discussed this with my wife, and we both decided not to change our decision. But my parents clearly aren't happy about it. They've gone around the whole family telling everyone how I've always envied my brother and now I'm enjoying the opportunity to make my family suffer. I honestly don't understand why they're reacting so strongly, especially considering that they're literally messaging every relative to complain about me. Relatives aren't asking them anything, they're just writing to them and complaining. It's just ridiculous, and I think they're just trying to get attention. But I'm not going to play along with them, no matter what they do. I'm not going to unblock them or discuss this with them. Some relatives they wrote to sent me screenshots. I explained everything to them, and honestly, they already knew everything. For the past 5 years, we've met at family events but haven't talked to each other, so most people knew about our difficult relationship. But now they've taken it too far, trying to drag others into it and make me look bad. Anyway, after I explained everything, most of my relatives said I shouldn't worry about my parents. They're not going to judge me because they know what happened in the past, and they understand that my parents are just dramatizing everything. There are more important things going on in my life. My wife is pregnant, and I don't think I want to waste time on these family arguments. We were planning to announce it in a couple of weeks, but now I'm thinking of doing it earlier to make it clear to my parents and finally stop them from bothering me. I think it's a good idea, though I'm not sure it will work, since my parents are pretty heartless. They might even try to keep pressuring us despite my wife's pregnancy. You can expect anything from them. Update 2. Hi, we announced our pregnancy on social media a few days ago. It's been around 10 days since my last conversation with my parents. Most relatives congratulated us, but then I got a letter from an unknown address. It said that my child would suffer because of what I've done to my family. I immediately realized it was from my parents. No one else would write something so disgusting. Our baby isn't even born yet, and they're already wishing bad things on him, just because I refused to help my brother. And it wasn't even Craig asking me for help, it was my parents. They just want me to give him a job, but honestly, it doesn't matter anymore. Even if I had done something terrible, they still wouldn't have the right to write something like that. Update 3. After my last conversation with my parents, they seem to have decided to lay low and not do anything. I even held a party to announce the pregnancy to relatives and close friends, and I expected my parents to try something on that day, but they didn't even attempt to interfere. At that point, I thought maybe they had finally let go of this whole issue. I decided to do the same. But today, I got a call from Craig, right at work. It was strange because he stopped talking to me 5 years ago, and I had no idea why he suddenly decided to reach out. For a second, I thought he wanted to talk to me about the same thing my parents did and would demand that I give him a job, and I'd have to go through that whole circus again. So, I ignored his first call, but then he called a few more times and even sent a message saying it was urgent and he really needed to talk to me. When I finally answered, he immediately told me not to worry because he didn't need anything from me. He just wanted to discuss something that had been bothering him for a while. We talked today. He told me that for the last few weeks, he's been in a deep depression and hasn't spoken to anyone, not even answering messages and emails from relatives. It wasn't until a couple of days ago that he finally checked his mail and realized that the whole family was discussing how unfair it was for our parents to pressure me into giving him a job. Craig was confused because, for the past few weeks, he'd been talking to our parents but they hadn't mentioned anything about what was going on in the family. After reading all these messages, he asked our parents if they really tried to make me hire him, and they completely denied it, saying they had no idea what he was talking about. But he had a feeling they were lying, so he decided to call me to get the truth. He admitted that he trusted our parents and had been sharing his worries with them about his job, but he never once said he wanted my help. So, he couldn't understand why they suddenly started dragging me into it and trying to make me hire him when he never even asked for it. I thought he deserved to know the truth, so I told him everything. I explained what our parents had said to me and how they insisted that I should help him and support the family because Craig was in a tough situation, and they didn't want him to suffer. I told Craig that, at first, our parents probably did want to help him get back on his feet, but in the end, it just turned into pressure on me, and I didn't like it. I told him I felt genuinely sorry that he lost his job because I knew how important it was to him, and how much effort he put into that company. Being fired in such a situation must have been tough. But honestly, he knew we never got along and we wouldn't be able to work together. That's why I refused my parents' request. Craig seemed to understand. He said he never wanted to work with me, and it wasn't said with any contempt, it was just that he was in such a state that he didn't want to work at all. He deliberately took a break. Our parents made it seem like he didn't have any decent offers, but the truth was, he just consciously chose not to accept them because he wanted a break, and that was his personal decision. It wasn't about him being so upset about being fired. He just wanted some time off. He was clearly frustrated by the whole situation, and I let him vent. Even though we haven't had a close relationship for a long time, I thought he still had the right to express his feelings. After he was done, he said he was really angry about how our parents handled everything. Their actions made him look pathetic, and now many people think he desperately tried to convince our parents to make me hire him, even though, in reality, he never asked for that. He said he was going to talk to our parents about this and clear things up with them. He also apologized to me for everything I had to go through because of them. I thought that was a pretty mature move on his part. It seems like in the last 5 years, he really grew up, especially after getting fired. I think he realized that nothing in life is permanent, and you shouldn't be too proud or arrogant. Maybe this situation was a lesson for him. We obviously didn't suddenly become best friends, but at least we were able to have a normal conversation, and for me, that's enough. Update 4. A couple of days ago, Craig and I spoke again on the phone, and he said that after our conversation, he was going to sit down with our parents and tell them what he really thought about the whole situation. And he really did. But everything didn't go very smoothly. Our parents immediately took a defensive position and started making excuses, saying they were just trying to help him because they thought his decision to take a break was wrong. According to them, he should have immediately started looking for a new, more prestigious job. This ended in a huge argument because Craig accused them of trying to control him his whole life, not giving him the chance to make his own decisions, even when he became an adult. Our parents, of course, didn't like that and started listing everything they'd ever done for him, as if it was some kind of great favor. But in reality, these were just the things parents are supposed to do for their children. I honestly don't understand why they always act like they did us some kind of favor. It wasn't a favor. It's their direct responsibility. The argument got so serious that Craig is no longer talking to them, and guess who they're blaming again? Of course, me. I just don't understand how it's always me who gets blamed for all their problems. This time, they didn't even try to work things out with me personally, they just posted on Facebook, detailing how poor and unfortunate they are. Fortunately, all our relatives immediately took my side and called them out in the comments. They reminded our parents that they've been horrible not just to me but to Craig as well. They pressured him his whole life and tried to control him when things were already hard for him, instead of supporting him emotionally. They only made the situation worse and made him look bad. After our relatives tore them apart in the comments, our parents deleted the post and blocked everyone from our family. In the end, they pretty much alienated themselves from everyone, and honestly, I'm glad. As for me and Craig, he apologized for how he treated me in the past, and we decided to try to rebuild our relationship. Of course, we're not going to become best friends overnight, but at least now we can talk normally, and that's enough for me. The most important thing in my life right now is my wife and the fact that I'm going to be a father soon. That's what matters most to me.